Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Ainav Avni, and today in the studio, I'm really excited to introduce you to Joelle Kaufman. Joelle, wonderful to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be here, Enough.
Awesome. Let's get everyone on the same page. I'll read a little bit about you so everyone can know what I already know. Right. So Joelle Kaufman has faced cancer 12 times over 43 years. Her own journey, plus walking alongside loved ones through theirs. She wrote Crushing the Cancer Curveball because she discovered something most people miss. Healing isn't just about medicine. It's about rewiring your mind, building the right team around you, and creating small daily habits that add up to extraordinary resilience. Her approach works whether you're a CEO or a stay-at-home parent, because chronic illness doesn't care about your resume, it cares about how you respond. Yes. That definitely speaks my language. I'm so with you on that one. But tell me a little bit about you. Where would you like to start?
Well, everybody, when you tell them you have cancer or you're a cancer survivor, the normal reaction, I do it too, is I'm so sorry. And look, that's right. Nobody wants cancer. You'd be out of your mind. And when you talk to people who faced cancer, if it wasn't a miserable death, like there are people who have lost people and it's awful. So I don't want to sugarcoat that. But most people, 50% of cancers are detected late stage, which means 50% are detected early. And when they're detected early, treatment is highly effective. I know you're in the UK, so I don't know the numbers there, but in the United States, there are 20 million survivors, which is easily 10x or more the number of people who die on an annual basis. So we're talking about something that can kill you, is very serious, and is very disruptive. And yet when I talk to people in this 20 million group, they all talk about it made their life better. They wouldn't have chosen it. They would have rather not. But maybe it's a survival mechanism. You may know more than me. But, as they reflect on it, what's important is very clear. One of the things I found, cancer didn't make me feel weak. I mean, of course, I was fatigued and queasy and I was worried about my hair and all that. But when I stepped back, I was like, wow, my body is strong. Look at what I am enduring. Look at how I am living in spite of. And that actually made me feel good about myself, which is an interesting juxtaposition, right? So cancer also shows you who's important in your life and who you are important to. And people show up in surprising and amazing ways, and there are people who are infuriating. That's the human race.
Right. And we started, I guess, from kind of maybe the middle part, right? Because, of course, as we both know, maybe we all know that when you hear cancer, the first thing that you do is there's a lot of fear, right? We tend to go into the worst case scenario, and a lot of the time we stay there. But here you are, you found your way, and I guess one thing that I want to ask, because you have met and known so many people that've been diagnosed with cancer, how do you actually find the ability to say, hey, yes, it is not ideal, maybe, but actually there's more to it than that. So how do you keep the positivity and the mindset that, hey, it's not a death sentence necessarily?
Okay, so first, I want to put a pin in positivity, because this is not about people having to be positive and cancer patients needing to have a positive attitude. I actually think that is putting pressure on a cancer patient, and they don't need any more. Now, to answer your question, that particular one, to answer your question, first, we have to understand cancer is a class of diseases. It's not one thing. Even breast cancer, which is what I had and I faced with my mother and my sister and my mother and my sister, it happened multiple times, is not one disease. It turns out that my family, we're all triple negative. We have a genetic mutation. It's always the same pathology on the breast cancer. But there's 140 varieties. So the first thing you have to know is, what do I know and what don't I know? The second is, when your mind, your context for cancer is movies, TV, books, or someone died, you have a disproportionately negative perception of a bad disease. Not that there's any positive perception, but it's a dramatic plot device for entertainment. And yes, people die. Late stage cancers kill people, although I will tell you, in my book and in my work, I've interviewed many stage 4 cancer survivors, and the progress in the last 2 decades, the number of interventions and drugs that are extending life with quality, is amazing. But it is not infallible, and late stage cancers kill people. So what do you know? Do I have an early stage localized cancer? Do I have a late stage cancer? Do I have a cancer that responds to treatment? Do I have a hard to treat cancer? Do I have a cancer that is growing aggressively? Do I have a cancer that's growing slowly? And all of those things start to shape, what do I have to be afraid of? Now, if it's early stage, responsive to treatment, fast or slow growing, almost may not matter. And we're talking about solid tumors here. I'm not talking about the blood cancers. I don't know enough about lymphoma and leukemia to be articulate. I'm talking about solid cancers like breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, whatever. So when you know what you're dealing with, you then say, okay, how much do I want to be afraid of this? Now, I'm taking a very rational approach. The reality enough is, you're going to feel scared sometimes, and you're going to feel mad sometimes, and you're going to feel resentful. I am astounded at how many people feel guilty. Like, what did I do? And I want to send a message out to everybody. Nothing. You didn't do anything. You had cells that run amok and somehow evaded your immune system's efforts to kill them. If we knew what caused that series of errors, we would obviously try to do interventions. But my sister was diagnosed, she was 29. She had just done an Ironman. She was in extremely great shape. Right? Should you eat well? Yes. Should you exercise? Yes. And it should be weight bearing. And you should do cardio. Should you minimize alcohol, no smoking? Yes. All of these things are going to make you healthier without cancer, but they aren't going to guarantee you don't get it, because there are none. So we have to get grounded in, I feel what I feel, and I'm going to feel fear. I want to go feel it. I am afraid. I don't want to miss my kids growing up. I don't want to not be able to travel. I don't want to not go on this trip. I don't want to not be able to work. Whatever it is, write it all down. Express it. Because once you do, would that take me 10 seconds? Like, I don't know people who can do that for 5 minutes. But if you can, do it for 5 minutes. Do it for 15 minutes. Do it however long you need to do it. And then you've done it. Those are your fears. Okay. What do we want to do with the other 23 hours and 45 minutes of your day? And I would suggest you want to fill your time or ask people to help drop moments that make you smile. Not because you need to be positive and not because you need to be strong, but because when someone tells you, I love you, you're important to me, can I bring you something to eat? Could we take a walk? Do you remember the time we did that stupid thing at night and, ran screaming through the streets? All of that makes us smile. And when we have those moments, they help us think more clearly. They help us connect with people, which we need, and they bolster our immune system. So and that's not be positive. Be however you want to be. I like you. I just want you to know that.
The part about positivity wasn't necessarily yes, you need to be positive. That's not what I meant. Because I've done a lot of stuff with around cancer as well, and what I was trying to say is that a lot of the time, and also even if it's not about cancer, even if someone, just going through something, it's so there is a challenge there about saying actually I am not giving in to fear, or I'm not wallowing about it. So sure, not it's not about the positivity, but it's about how can we help people, or how be able to say. So one thing that you're saying, of course, is write it down and notice that these are your fear and you're not your fears, right? This is just normal, something that is going through your system. But it's a I guess I kind of I guess I jumped straight into that place where how to help people to I don't know, maybe to be more aware of what is going on for them, because it's like you say, right? When you smile, when you're able to regulate your nervous system, that's when healing can happen.
Great. And look, when you first get diagnosed with cancer, it's a avalanche of information, of appointments, of feelings. It's scary. And it is hard to realize that you have a choice about how you approach this.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have a choice about how your body's going to respond. You can do everything, like I ate well, I exercised, I was very proactive on side effect management, because why suffer any more than you have to? Like there's no award for suffering the most. So suffer the least. But you, other than trying to minimize it, you may suffer. It may be hard. And those aren't the things you can control. But you can control the story you tell. Right? Mm-hmm. So the way I discovered these happiness tripwires that I just told you a little bit about, and I write about in Crushing the Cancer Curveball, is I said, okay, I was diagnosed the day before I was supposed to have a preventative bilateral mastectomy. That's a big deal. I had made plans and arrangements, and we plan, God laughs. And so I felt like, really? Had I done this a year earlier, I would have avoided cancer? Like, there was a lot of recrimination here. But it happened. I can't go back in time and do something differently. So I knew that meant chemotherapy. And I'd seen 11 other people in my family go through chemotherapy and said, this can suck. How could I make this suck less? And how could I help my children? Because I have cancer, but I'm still a mother. I have cancer, but I'm still an executive. How can I help the people around me process this and help me? And this series of questions led to the discovery. For example, one of my kids was leaving to go back to college, and here in the United States, that may be thousands of miles away. And in our case it was. And he's an athlete who he was in season. He couldn't come home. So he knew I was going to go through this, and he couldn't see me unless I could travel to watch him play, which I did. But we didn't know if I'd be able to do that, because we don't know how your body's going to respond, right? So I said, well, here's what you could do. I'm going to have a chemotherapy infusion every week. And, that could be an icky day. So could you write me a letter that I'll open at the infusion center? And it will effectively be, if you will, digital chocolate. I will get a letter, and it will make me do that. It will make me smile, bring me into your life. Could you do that for me? And I knew he was a good writer, and he said, yeah, I'd love to do that. Great. Fast forward, Inav, I have 12 letters from my then 19-year-old son from his first year in college. And they were delightful. And in that moment, and they weren't profound, let me be clear. They were like, this is what's happening in my classes. This is what happened on campus.
No expectations, right? It's
right? Like this wasn't like, and mother, this is what you mean to me. Like, no, it was real, right? It was real. And they were all digital. No, there was no stamp involved in this. But I got them each week. Sometimes I had to remind him, again, let's be real. Like, hey, am I getting a letter? Oh, yeah, here. And then share it. But it released this surge of 3 hormones into my body, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. I knew it felt good. It was a nicer way to start an infusion day than just waiting for the labs. And I learned later it was giving my immune system kind of a turbocharge. Well, and I said, all right, how do I feel like that more frequently during the day? So another friend said, what can I do? I live in Oregon. You're in San Francisco. What can I do? I said, you know what? You're a funny dude. And I happen to know you have a decade of people sending you email that you shouldn't have gotten that you responded to. And they're funny. Would you send me one every day? And he did. So I was guaranteed a laugh every day. Another friend sent me funny pictures of her dog. I got a port for them to do the chemo, and that's a subcutaneous device that means you don't have to get lots of IVs, and if a port makes sense for you, it's a great thing. But it also is a visible sign that you're having chemotherapy or some other kind of infusion, that you're not otherwise healthy. So how do I make that suck less? I gave it a name. Actually, I asked a bunch of my friends to come up with names, and someone came up with, my friend Julie, Voldeport. And I would introduce Voldeport to my nurses when they were going to access my port, and they would laugh, and I would laugh, and there it is again. Another brief surge of those fabulous feelings. And I could go through all the little things. Some of them were my routine, some of them other people did. And what I realized is these things happen all the time. We're just so busy, or we're so wrapped up in our fear or our anxiety or our sadness, right? Like, I forgot to say this in my sister's story. It was 3 months before her wedding when she was diagnosed, right? So how were we going to delay the wedding? Were we going to have the wedding in the middle of chemotherapy? How are we doing this? How is she doing this? They had to think about fertility. This was in 2003. They had to think about fertility before they were married, for the risk that the chemotherapy was going to take choices away from them. I'll ruin the ending. It didn't. There are things that they can do to try to help with that, and it worked for my sister. But they had to talk about it. They had to plan for it. They had to do things. All of this is sad and frustrating and not what you want to do in the 3 months before your wedding. So, right, how do I make this suck less? With her wedding, she talked to her doctors and said, can we schedule the chemo so that I'm between types of chemo and I'm in recovery for my wedding? They said, we can do that. Great. And you're going to lose your hair. And she has fabulous hair. So she said, all right, I'll get a really great wig. She was sad. I'm making this sound like she was happy. She wasn't. And then the rest of us, the men said, we'll shave our heads. And the women said, we'll all wear wigs. We're not Orthodox. We don't usually wear wigs. But we did. And that wedding became a celebration of joy, a celebration of life, and was a huge source of happiness for her and her husband. I was talking to somebody last week who was at that wedding, who I ran into randomly in a hospital, and she said, I still go back to how that wedding felt because it was so profound and powerful. That's a massive happiness tripwire. That's kind of like a whole room of happiness tripwires. But it's possible to trip over these things and let them give you a moment. And however long that moment lasts, it lasts. But we have to slow down enough to notice and appreciate them and let those feelings flow through us. Because if we fly by it, I got a note from my kid, you don't get the benefit. But I savored a 4-paragraph note from my son. Oh yeah, you're going to get the good stuff then.
And it sounds like a support system, and being able to communicate about your wants and needs is very important in your method or in your way of helping or dealing with cancer.
I think everyone should feel entitled. If you happen to draw the short straw and you get cancer or some other difficult to deal with situation, I don't care if it's a divorce, I don't care if it's something going on with your kids, if there's something hard that you're dealing with, I think you are entitled to say, hey, I'm dealing with something difficult. Whether or not you want to go into the details of what that is, that's up to you. I tend to overshare. But I'm going through something difficult. It's really distracting me and dragging me down. Here's the kind of support that helps XYZ. And by the way, here's the kind of support that doesn't. And I'm just going to put that out there. I actually did that, Einav, the day I was diagnosed, because a lot of people knew I was going to have surgery the next day. And so I didn't want them asking and calling about the surgery. I thought that would be a drag to tell people over and over again. And it's also a drag to tell people you have cancer over and over again. And I'm not divorced, but I would assume it's a drag to tell people you're going through a divorce over and over again. Sharing bad news repetitively doesn't make it better. So I prefer to share it the way I want to share it, put it out there. And I also told people, here's what I need. I need an oncologist. I don't need stories of other people's cancer. I actually don't need a support group. I'm related to one. And I love stories about your life. I love funny pictures. I want to be involved in your life still, but if I can't do the sorts of things, if I'm not there for you the way I like to be, please give me a little bit of grace because I'm going through something right now. And people wrote back, hey, I'm sorry you're going through this, and here's what I want to do, and thank you for being so clear. Because everybody wants to help. That's a human reaction. They just don't know how, and they really don't want to do the wrong thing. So help them.
Yeah, I think it is a very good reminder for all of us to be clear about what you need and not need, and basically your boundaries when you are the one going through something, and you don't want people necessarily telling you their opinions or recommendations or sending you links or telling you stories all the time, right? It's your way. I mean, I know a lot of people who, for example, considered whether they did it or not in the end is not the point, but did consider or ask themselves if they wanted to go through chemotherapy or if they wanted to go through an alternative way of healing. And that was a challenge because there were so many people, again, dealing with their own fears, trying to make decisions for them. And it's that. I think it's the boundaries and saying, actually, my journey, my way.
And I do want you on the journey with me, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you get to tell me what to do. And when people slip up, because they do, the way I choose to think about it is it's coming from a place of love and caring. they don't want to lose me, or they're scared this could happen to them and they'd like some reassurance that they'll be okay. The second one, not really my problem, but I can appreciate those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when I had to tell my children, who are all adults, well, my daughter was 15 and a half, interestingly, the same age I was when my mother had a recurrence. And so I said to her, because she got very upset, and I said, "You're scared?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "You're scared of losing me?" She said, "Yes." I said, "And you're scared of this happening to you?" And she looked at me and said, "And that's okay. That's normal. You're not a bad person because you're scared of that. In fact, I'd be worried about you if you weren't. And so it's okay." The next question is, what are you going to do with those feelings? You know, if you're scared it's going to happen to you, what can you do to reduce your risk? And in our family, and we don't know if my daughter has the gene or not, in our family, you know, it's really hard to reduce the risk to zero. We have an 80% genetic possibility, right? But you can learn to be very familiar with your body. You can learn how to feed and care for your body so that you're strong and healthy. And you can tell every medical professional you ever see that this is a big thing in your family and ensure they are looking and watching your body using imaging, using manual exams. I mean, enough. I changed OB-GYNs in my second pregnancy because the OB I was with refused to do a breast exam every time I had a pregnancy exam. She said, "It's not necessary." I was like, "And we're done." Because in my family, with my genetics, it is, and a breast exam is non-invasive. We're talking about a 60-second thing. So for you not to do it is a callous disregard for the risk I carry, and I don't want that person as one of my medical team. Okay, good news, there are others, right? So, you know, that's what you can do when you're scared, is you can use it as fuel for how you communicate and how you live. But it's reasonable to be scared of getting cancer when you've seen it in your family this many times. It's just not reasonable to let that that fear paralyze you.
But how do we not let the fear paralyze us?
So, well, I told you, like, first we got to let it out. We got to express it, right? We might even want to talk to it.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, fear. You're here to bother me. I didn't really think I was going to die from my diagnosis. Again, my mother lived, my sister lived. You know, of the 12 diagnoses, only I think 2 have died, and they were older and it was late stage. So I had this irrational basis to say, I'm going to be okay. And then I watched a TV show, and the TV show had a funeral for a character because the actress had died. And the actress was exactly my age and had died of breast cancer. And I'm going to assume, she actually was British, I'm going to assume she had countless unlimited resources at her disposal to try to avoid that outcome. And it didn't work. And I went right down into the fear tunnel. Like, boo! What if I'm wrong? What if I'm the exception in my family? And as I stayed up at night, not able to sleep, I came to the place of, I don't know anything different than I knew 3 hours ago. I don't have any new information about my body and my cancer and my treatment. So, yes, it is a possibility that this won't work. And if that happens, I will have to face it then. But facing it now, when it isn't happening, it's not going to help me deal with it then. Right? It's just going to make me deal with it twice. Once imaginary and once real. So I think we have to face our fear, and then we have to build our confidence that we will be able to face whatever happens. We will do everything in our power to get the outcome we want. And we will face, because you don't have another choice.
Yeah. No,
Right? So you're going to face it, whether you face it well or with grace or I don't know, but you will face it. And, you know, if you say, look, I have people around me who love me. How do I know? Because they're loving me now. I have doctors who I trust. How do I know? Because I talk to them and I trust them now. And go ahead.
Sorry, I think it's important what you said about, you know, your belief that you're going to come out of it, because okay, even if fear is another feeling and stuff, is this belief is very important. My brother had cancer. He died when he was 42, and he had kind of an outlook that said, "I don't have it."
Okay.
I don't have it, and he went, you know, for a while. I mean, he was going through that cancer journey for a while, but it was interesting for me because when he was going through this journey, I was like, you know, this is incredible. I was so impressed with his attitude and his, like, you know, yeah, continue going to the gym and doing his thing. Everything was the same. Of course, for him, he had melanoma. It was slowly, you know, the body was different and stuff. But later on, after he died, or not later on, actually, many years later, when I started working with healing and looking at the natural healing of mind, body, and soul, I thought to myself, how interesting that, you know, he was saying, I don't have it. I you know, basically ignoring it, but that's not allowing the emotions to come out. And so I don't know if he dealt with his fears. I don't know exactly what all of that, but I understood that actually if we did have a conversation about emotions and everything that he was going through, maybe not, things could be different.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm sorry. I'm sure your brother was sorry and that he wanted more. I applaud him for continuing to squeeze as much out of life as he could get, since his life was unfairly cut short by this disease. But I think everybody, whether or not you believe you're going to live or die, I mean, probably does have a factor. I've not researched it. I knew, I'm very rational, that's where I'm comfortable. Like, I knew statistically the highest probability was I was going to live. And that allowed me to harness
the triple negative is a very aggressive form of cancer, right? Is that, so it's very interesting.
So it is, but and again, my mother's a 43-year survivor of triple negative, and triple negative does kill people. It is also some types of triple negative, because again, there's all different factors. Some types of triple negative are highly responsive to chemotherapy. I'm lucky I'm in that group, right? Other types are less responsive, right? And then it's a fast-growing cancer, and it's not good. So you don't know, but you also don't know if you walk across the street that you will return home. You should. Odds are you will, but it isn't guaranteed. Life isn't. So I applaud your brother for wanting to enjoy and not dwell in, I'm dying. Now, I do think it's very hard for us to talk with people about dying. We somehow think by talking about it, we make it more real. And for people facing cancer, they often they know if they are terminal, there's a time frame. They don't know how long it is, but they know they aren't going to recover from it. And they do want to talk. They want to talk about how they feel sometimes. I mean, if they don't want to talk, it's their choice. But they also may want to tell you what you mean to them. They may want to give you advice or observations. My grandmother, when she was in that place, wanted my grandfather to know, and all of us to know, she wanted him to partner again. She wanted him to have love and affection, and she suggested he do it very quickly after she passed, because she said to him, "You're no good alone. You're not built for it." I thought that was a huge expression of love, right? Like, she loves him, and she gave him permission. She said, like, it's not an expression of love to me for you to be miserable after I'm gone. I don't want that. Right? So we want to create the space for people to say what they want to say, but not the obligation. If your brother never wanted to talk about it, then that's his choice.
Yeah. You mentioned at the beginning that a lot of the time people, when they get diagnosed, they feel guilt. And in conversations that I've had with people, for me, what I found was that a lot of the time, guilt was more profound when it was a recurring cancer, and that's when they were. I've had so many conversations with people on that recurring journey, and now they're thinking, really, what did I do? And now they're not only thinking about nutrition and exercise. It's also about did I not do something, or did I get back into my old habits too soon, or something like that?
Did I choose the wrong treatment path?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So there's worrying about recurrence and then dealing with recurrence, which I have not had. Both my mother and sister have had recurrences, and other family members have had recurrences, which are never good news. Like, that is, you don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
And if they're early, they often can be dealt with. And now, even if they're late, they often can be dealt with. I was with a friend this weekend who's a stage 4 breast cancer thriver. She's been stage 4 for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And she's like, yeah, they found something here and they zapped it and we'll know if that worked. She says, but I feel good today. Like, this is one of the things about cancers. It makes you very present. Where am I today? So when you're feeling that way about a recurrence, you've lost that presence, and you're trying to say, well, could I time travel? Well, look, if you can time travel, screw the cancer, go do that. Like, there's all kinds of things interesting to check out. But we don't have control. We don't know why some cancers recur and some don't. The scientists are trying to figure that out, and they're trying to figure out why some respond fully to treatment and why some doesn't. And this is the amazing process of discovery happening in science. But when it's your life, you're like, well, I don't want to be a statistic in someone's research project. I want to live. And what I do say is, so be in the now. How do you want to live right now? If you're worried about recurrence, what choices are in front of you that you can make in order to potentially reduce that risk and ensure that if it happens, it's caught as early as possible? If you've had a recurrence, you're in it. What are my choices for treatment that gives me the highest quality of life and the highest efficacy? And how do I stay present? I had a friend who was diagnosed stage 4 with colon cancer. And she was a 10-year breast cancer survivor, and the colon cancer was a surprise. And she was young, maybe in her mid-60s. And she and her husband, we were talking, because people talk to me about cancer, and they said, we have this big trip with her family, a cruise, and we're not sure we should go. I said, oh, if you can go, go. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, ask the doctor about when she needs to start chemo and if it will make a difference. And if it's feasible for you to go, Go. Fill your cup with as much happiness and joy as you can, so it will sustain you through what will be rough times with very toxic treatment. And they did. And it was wonderful, and it was magical. And if they hadn't said to the doctor, hey, we've got this cruise, can we do it? The doctor wouldn't have known and wouldn't have been able to work the schedule with them. You know, when my mother went through her stage 3 bladder cancer, and she was diagnosed where she lives in Florida, and then a consult here in California, and we liked the surgeon and the team at Stanford, but she and my dad said, you know, I don't want to live here for all of chemo. This isn't where our life is, our friends. So we asked the doctor, can you direct the treatment plan, but infusions happen back in Florida? Yes, we can. So advocacy, taking responsibility and expressing your voice. And what do you want? I don't think you should tell the doctor, well, I want this chemo and not that chemo, unless you are a specialist in your kinds of cancer. And even there, they would say, doctors, don't treat yourself. Like, let your doctors guide you on the medical choices, and then you make your choice. And for people, a lot of people say, I don't want chemo because I'm afraid of it. Like, look, again, you may have seen people go through chemo and it's pretty awful. There's also a bunch of people who go through chemo and you didn't even know they were going through chemo.
Yeah.
So it depends on the chemo. It depends on how you respond to the chemo. And there are a number of things you can do to reduce the side effects. And if the chemo can save your life, like, I'd go with the chemo. I had to say to myself, I can do anything 12 times. I can do anything 10 times. I can do anything 4 times. Because I can.
Why 12? Why 10? What is that?
Oh, sorry. 12. I had 12 cycles of chemo. So every time, it's like, okay. And if it hadn't worked, I was going to have 4 cycles of a way more toxic, awful chemo. And I said, it's 4. Like, even if it's awful, it's 4. It's 8 weeks. And in my case, again, the probability was at 99% or something that this treatment would work. I'm like, okay, can I be miserable for 4 or 8 weeks plus 12 weeks, 20 weeks in order to get 50 years? Yes, I will make that calculus. However, if they're saying we don't think the chemo could cure you, we don't think it's going to materially extend your life, you may make the choice that you don't want to go through that. And as people who love people, we say, all right, I respect that. But these are the different scenarios. So the guilt about I had a recurrence and what did I do? Nothing. Cells ran amok. They evaded treatment and evaded your immune system. And now we have to try something else. And eat healthy, exercise. Do it always. There's, exercise has I think it's a 30% improvement on outcomes. So exercise is just good for you. And it's really good for you if you're going through cancer. Eating well is good for you. It doesn't matter if you have cancer. So, do those things because you want to live. You want to live healthy.
What advice did your mum and sister have for you when you found out, when you got your diagnosis?
And we talk about cancer a lot in my family, so I probably had already gotten the advice. Like, my kids would say, I know what to do if I get a cancer diagnosis, right? Like, we have the ability to choose our doctors. I've always enrolled and purchased and paid for health insurance that gave me flexibility so that I could have choice in my medical team. Find the doctors that you trust, but that also really know your disease. Interestingly, I was recommended to this oncologist. She is my oncologist. She's wonderful. She doesn't specialize in triple negative, but she does specialize in breast cancer. And that was enough for me. Listen to your body. If your body's tired, because I tend to just go, go, go. If your body's tired, it's telling you you need to rest. And you have to listen to it, because if you're tired and you don't listen to it, you could get depleted, and that could impact what you can tolerate in treatment. The third advice they gave me, it's okay to eat comfort food. I talked about eating healthy, but, if there's a certain food that really makes you feel good and it's a chemo day, have it. Or if you're fasting on chemo days, have it before. Like, it's okay to indulge a little bit here and there. And the last one was stay ahead of. So stay ahead of the nausea. Stay ahead of the hair loss. Stay ahead of the neuropathy. These things, once they start, it's much harder to stop. So advocate to stay ahead. What does that mean? How do you
stay ahead?
Okay. So to stay ahead of nausea, you talk to your doctor about what are called antiemetics, and you advocate for the strongest antiemetic you can get and tolerate. And then you take them. Because not when you're nauseous, before you're nauseous. Before you might even feel queasy. If you know I'm about to have chemotherapy, they're going to give you, through the IV, antiemetics, and they tell you what to take. They'll say, if needed. Chemo's in your body for 24 to 72 hours. Consider it needed for that period of time. And if you want to experiment, stop at 48 hours, see how you feel. But if you feel at all a little like, ooh, I'm getting a little uncomfortable, take it right then. Don't wait. We don't want to get behind it, because if you have to take something orally and then you're throwing up, it doesn't seem to work, right? Mm-hmm. What do you do with hair? Well, if you're me, and I really like my hair, and I didn't want to lose my hair, there was an option called cold capping. But you have to do it every time, and you have to stay, it doubles the amount of time of each infusion session. So instead of being at the hospital for 2.5 hours, I'm at the hospital for 5. Plus labs and all, so assume it's like 6 or 7 hours, which is a drag. And if I had children in childcare, or I had work that made that really hard, like, there are things you have to balance. And hair grows back, so you can say, fine, I'll shave my head and hair will grow back, and it does. But for most, unless you have to radiate your scalp, and that's a different issue. But from chemo, your hair grows back. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, I can make my work and my life work to be at the hospital for 6 or 7 hours and put a freezer on my head in order to keep my hair. It worked. How do you deal with neuropathy? Again, we put ice mittens on and ice socks. By far the most miserable thing I had to do. I didn't like it, but it helped, right? Or it didn't, but I don't know, because I wasn't going to run the experiment. Well, let's do one hand in, one hand out, and let's see. I'm not interested. I'm interested in being proactive. So those are the kinds of things. You get the mouthwash so that or you build it with baking soda so that you can help relieve mouth sores. You get some ginger so you can suck on something that can settle your stomach, right? You buy hats so that if you do lose your hair, you have something you can put on your head, and scarves. You don't wait for it to happen. You do it in advance so that if it happens, you don't have that awful thing of like, can I go? No, I don't want to go outside and have everybody stare at me and say, wow, what's wrong with her? You just don't want to. So that's what I mean about getting ahead of. Mm-hmm. Saying, would I like these things not to happen? Of course. Do I have a say in that? Not really. But I do have a say in either minimizing them or preventing them. I mean, I even did the acupuncture thing for the neuropathy. I was like, fine, let's do that. Yeah. Can't hurt. Does help. Or doesn't. I don't know. Wasn't going to run a control test.
Yeah. And I think that's important to remember that, yes, you don't have to, you can do chemotherapy and have other things to help you feel a little bit better, from the alternative things out there like acupuncture and so on.
Absolutely. Integrative oncology is a real thing, and it includes acupuncture, nutrition, massage, exercise, mental health. The thing to be careful about is if you're looking at Chinese medicine and supplements and what have you, you need to tell your medical team anything you want to take because there are drug interactions. I'll give you an example. Some chemotherapies efficacy is reduced with oral vitamin C. Who would have known? You have to tell your doctor. However, if you're doing high dose IV vitamin C, there's some signs that that actually improves the efficacy. But you can't take that orally, and you'll be dealing with a doctor who does IV, and there's a different metabolic process when you're taking 50,000 milligrams of vitamin C versus 500. But in all cases, you must tell your team because they will know what interacts and what doesn't. And if you're going to go through this, you want to get the best outcome you possibly can.
Absolutely. And so what excites you now? I mean, you've written the book, you're working with people, you're connecting with people, you're telling them about your experience and what you found. What excites you about the waves that your book and work is already doing out there?
I think we are giving people power back, right? Cancer makes you feel like you've just gotten knocked off balance and the floor is now moving. I say like the oxygen leaves the room and the floor tilts and it feels really unfair. And my book, my podcast, Kicking Cancer's Ass, my speaking is about saying yes, and that sucks. And you have power. I want to show you where it is. Take from it what you want. You don't have to do this my way. Do this your way. But you can take power. There are things you can control. And you will feel better if you control what you choose to control. And when I hear back from people that my book, a podcast episode, or hearing me speak or speaking with me one-on-one was the first time they felt like I can do this. I'm going to be okay. I know the next step. Like those confidence builders, I feel like that's repair of the world. Like we're helping people. We're not going to be victims, even though you are a victim of cancer.
Yeah. I think it's you're mentioning some things that are so important, and yeah, it's helping to take away the fear and the uncertainties because yes, we don't know what's going to happen. None of us know about anything, really. But there are some things that we can do, and most of the time, and I know that a lot of the time say that there's a lot of confusion, like there's so much research and stuff. But like you say, if you're able to find your team, and I think integrative, teams are very interesting as well because there's, it's everything is considered there, but of course everyone needs to do whatever feels right to them. But yes, so reminding people that they can ask questions, that they can be present, bringing in this, nervous system regulation and humor and fun and joy and the things that matters to them, and so many reminders that are so helpful in making a difference in this journey.
Well, and there are people who say like, I feel like if I laugh, if I have joy, it somehow makes it okay that I got cancer. And I want people to know, like, the cancer doesn't care. It doesn't care if you're okay with it or not.
Yeah.
It's not sentient. You're not having a relationship with it. So this is your day. And this is the clarity that cancer patients, when I talk to them, when they're out of the absolute confusion and they're either post-treatment or they're, survivors or what have you, and they say, I have this day. What could I make of this day? I don't have to make it this profound, great day. I don't know. I don't have to change the world in this day, but what could I do with this glorious gift of this day? And if I can suggest something, tell someone in your life, in your world, something you appreciate about them. Just put a happiness tripwire in someone else's path. You will change their day, and it will change yours.
But I want to piggyback on that and say, but we will all benefit from remembering that every day is a gift, in our everyday life, even when there's no cancer or other diagnosis. And really, how often do we, live on automat? And actually, if we can remember at least a little bit that there is, to take this opportunity to make our days a gift, then that would be so much more joy for all of us.
And your life will be just a little bit easier. The day's a gift. That doesn't mean something bad isn't going to happen today. I don't know. Right? And there are days, I was at the hospital all last week with my dad. Thankfully, he's doing better. But there were days where we didn't know if he was going to do better or not. And I found myself feeling down and tired and low. And I said, take your own advice, Joelle. What could I trip over? What could I focus on for a moment of happiness? And whether it was being with my mother and sister together and helping my father as a team, and that was a moment to appreciate that we have a family that can do this. Was it the outreach from my friends? Yeah, I have people who care and want to support me. Okay, I'll let that fill my cup. Even the doctors coming in and giving us the reports and telling us what was going on. I appreciate that I live in a place where there are these doctors, even one who was on vacation and was calling in from Colorado. Right? Like, I don't like all of what they're saying, but I like that they're taking the time to say it and to ensure we understand. Right? So they're everywhere. Even when you're down in the dumps, even if this gift of a day is giving you curveball after curveball after curveball, pause a moment and and if you can't find any, like literally nothing good happened this whole day. Okay, there are days like that. Then close your eyes and remember something good that happened some other day. You can get the same boost from a memory.
I like that. I guess the other good news about, when you're having a really bad day is that there's only 24 hours in a day, and that will be finished very soon. And tomorrow is probably going to be better.
You hope so. But, look, I'm sure when your brother was declining, there were a number of bad days. And it was hard to find good things. I was talking to a woman who lost her mother to cancer, and she was young and her mother was young, and that's not a good day. There's no goodness, and I don't want to make that sound like, well, just find something happy. All I'm saying here is, when we're in the bad stuff, it drains our energy. Finding things that can give us a little bit of a boost is actually how we become resilient. Resilient isn't enduring and suffering and marshalling on. I think resilience is about boosting your energy steadily throughout the day so that you can think clearly, so that you can be present, and so that I can get to tomorrow.
But I think what you're saying is more important than that, because a lot of the time when we go through the bad days or whatever, we don't even necessarily remember that we have a choice, that we can pause and say, hey, actually, what is a good thing, or what is something that I can think about. So often we don't pay attention. So what you're saying is saying, actually, just remember, just pause for a second, just bring something that is different. And awareness and doing things, consciously or intentionally makes so much difference.
It does. And it doesn't have to be long, protracted. You literally could do this for 5 seconds,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's okay to say, like, this colossally sucks.
Yeah.
It's okay. And because some things do. I mean, colossally.
Yeah.
And then, what can I do to make this suck less? Just a little bit.
I like this question. Joelle, we come to the time when we need to say goodbye. I really enjoyed our conversation. I love your energy. I love all of your, really the ability to turn things around. And yes, it's okay to have a pity party, but it's also okay to say, yes, how can I make it suck a little bit less? And bring humor and bring awareness into everything that people are going through. Such a wonderful reminder. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for letting me share and joining me on the journey of putting power back in the hands of people facing hard things.
Yes, and thank you. And of course, all of your information will be in the show notes, so people can get your book, listen to the podcast, and get in touch or ask questions as they see fit. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you enough.
Thank you.